Hey, welcome back to Yomo, a year of magical learning. Today, we are excited to continue our discussions. This is part 4 of 5, and I'm super excited to continue on this book because, to me, this book is profound in terms of the concept that the author is trying to introduce.
So, a quick recap if this is the first one that you're tuning in for Humankind, this book is called Humankind, A Hopeful History by the author Rutger Bregman. The book is about, the traditional view of humankind is when you peel back the layers to our core, we are, negative and, kill, dog eat dog kind of, mindset. And, if it's you or me, it's going to be me and I'm going to kill you basically, is the primal instinct when you peel it all back to its core. Rutger Bregman's theory and thesis is when you peel back humanity to their core, we're actually kind, loving, caring, and all those good qualities that we all try to be. And then he gives a whole lot of supporting evidence as to what his claim is, and that's why it's called a hopeful history. Because humanity is actually filled with way more actions that align to this theory than it would be the other one. You can find some outliers, obviously, but for the most part, most of us are pretty kind and good at our core. And he backs it up with a lot of anecdotes. That said, it was really fun. Like Drew mentioned, it was kind of a countercultural take on humanity as the prevailing thought today, and it was really interesting book overall. So highly recommend it. This is reflection 4 of 5. This one is about mirroring, and we've kind of touched on this a little bit, but this is what this book made me think about, and myself particularly. We were just talking about yesterday, actually a part of all three of the conversations we've already had, we've kind of touched on this a little bit, but humanity has this, we read this in other books, I can't remember, I think this is maybe in Thinking Fast and Slow, and I feel like this was in that book by Robert Cialdini, Persuasion. There's probably been 2 or 3 other ones that have really touched a lot on our mirroring gene that we have, where we like to reflect back what we see in front of us. So if you and I are smiling, happy, you walk into a conversation and you're new to the conversation and everybody around you is kind and smiling and approachable and seem like they have a lot of energy, like you naturally are going to mirror that back with people. If you're working at a great company and you're around a great culture, you're going to naturally reflect the people that are around you. I mean, I think I know I've heard this a million times in my life before even this journey began, but you kind of are a sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with, right? Because the people that you spend so much time with, you end up mirroring back their personalities, and you guys all kind of intersect all together. So for me, this particular reflection, it touches a lot on our desire to mirror. And that's also another one of his thesis that leads to, there's a reason why we are homo puppy. We are drawn into people that are have kind faces, facial features, that have kind eyes and smile, et cetera, et cetera. Like we seek that out. And there's a reason why, because we're at our core, we're people, right? And that's the whole homo puppy theory, right? We've made ourselves slowly but surely over time evolved to be even more kind and appealing to other people so they can be more approachable. So we're attracting more people because that's what matters, right? And that's what we learn, and that's what we mirror back. So for me, this particular reflection, though, made me start to think about my son, Luca. When I was writing this one, he was about 8 months old at the time, and he's about 18 months now. So a year ago that I wrote this. He smiles all the time at me. Like every time that I walk into the room, this kid just lights up and starts smiling. And my wife jokes all the time, like, there's like she frustrates her because he doesn't do that to her, right? And not that he's like mean to her, but like there's a reason why. My kids are so impressionable, and I smile all the time. Whenever I smile, he just immediately smiles back, and now it's just become a thing he just does, right? And it's fascinating to me because how quickly he picks up on me smiling all the time, and all of a sudden he smiles back, and then we both chuckle and laugh or whatever, and he's he's learning. That's what he's learning, right? He's learning like this is good. I feel safe. I feel protected. I smile. People smile back at me, and we laugh, and we have a good interaction. But then it made me start to think about Amelia, right? Unfortunately for my daughter, she never got the ability to observe and watch my wife and I and learn from us and mirror back our actions after she passed away early on. I wrote in this reflection, however, Amelia was never a normal child. Ironically, my whole entire life purpose is trying to mirror Amelia and what she taught me of how to live a purpose-driven life. Somehow I was blessed with a child that actually was my hero and was the only person in my life that I've ever met that I've just, I owe it to her to do my best to try to mirror back the life that she lived. And that's what Living for Two is. Amelia was just a special kid, and she's always going to be a really incredibly special person to me. And just made me think about we mirror our idols, right? We mirror the people that inspire us. We mirror the people that we see their actions and how they live their lives. And, we either want to be that person or we don't want to be that person, but we mirror those people. So she gave me a blueprint on how I should live my life. And I made a promise to honor her and everything that I could do. And here we are on this Your Magical Learning Adventure right now. And this is a part of that journey, right? Like, this is a part of me honoring that promise to Amelia, and is a part of that promise. And the book that I wrote was a part of that promise. And whatever else comes next, right? Whatever new tower is being built in the city, like that I talked about in my book, that'll always be trying to live up to my hero, who I want to mirror every single day. That was what this reflection made me think about. The question I posed to everybody was, who's your hero, and how do you try to emulate them in your life and mirror what they taught you? Actually, hear your answer to that one. I know we don't always do that one, but I'd love to kind of hear your thought of who is your hero that you try to emulate and mirror. I'd love to learn.
Yeah, so for me, I think the reflection title for me, I would say it doesn't ring the bell as much as the word imitate, because for me, I truly think that we try to become the person that we want to become,
Mhm.
because we are drawn to the people that we wish to become. We
Mhm.
yearn to become that person. It isn't a mirror per se, it's like an imitation. So an imitation is like step in the shoe of, and I mentioned this even in the first reflection, is we have the ability to take ourselves and put ourselves in the shoe of that person. We have that
Right.
ability, and we can sense it with a great accuracy. If I lie to you, you would know. If I were to have an expression in my eye, like maybe move my eyebrow, you know that, hey, I'm either confused or I'm either angry. You know my emotion because we are expressing it. And because of that, you felt the emotion, the positive and negative vibe that we express, right? We can subconsciously absorb them, and we can become that person. We can, like you said, emulate, right? You want to
Right.
emulate that person, you emulate the behavior, you want to
Mhm.
emulate the characteristic, the personality of that behavior that you want to become. We are drawn to those people. For me, the word mirroring is more like a psychological trick than anything else. Just like you have the book How to Win Friends and Influence People
Right.
versus the other book, the 48
Um,
Power Law. It's the same
right.
concept, but it's
Right.
looking from different lens, right? One is from the positive, one is from negative.
Right.
That's why I want to maybe, hopefully, that I can convince you to maybe not use the word mirroring, because mirroring is like, I'm doing this so you like me.
Right.
But imitate or emulate someone is because you like that person, where you
Right.
were drawn to that person and you want to become that person. So you emulate them, you don't mirror them,
Right.
right? It's not like, okay, you go left, I go right because I got to mirror you to go right.
Right.
It's not because that's more of like a manipulations of the psychological, I guess you could say, a disadvantage or a habit that we have, right? We tend to find people that are like us more attractive in terms of, friendlier and smiling, just because we
Yeah.
want that, right? And
Mhm.
so when people mirror us, we feel better and we like that person more. And psychologists and the practitioner of the psychology concept, they will do that to win a sale or to do this and that. So for me, it's the same concept, but it has a bad connotation to it. Something with never quit,
Right.
enduring, right? So
Right.
it's the same concept from that, but I think because of the way we have been using it, and we're anchored to a certain negative images with these word, I would want to use emulate, because
Sure.
you want to
Yeah. I
emulate
mean,
your hero. You want to live up to the personality and characteristic of the people that you admire, right?
right.
Admire, and you want to emulate them. You don't want to mirror them.
Fair. I mean, I'm not going to argue about the words. I mean, you make a valid point, and I do like the word emulate a little bit better. But yeah, I'm with you on the, words matter, right? As we've talked about,
Hmm.
always be impeccable with your words. So make sure that you're saying what you're saying. Right.
Right,
I
because
can't mirror.
each word, like I say, it triggers an image,
Right.
and whether it's a good intended image or a good intended word, but it may cause a different image in other people's mind, then it may contradicts, and it may not, it may even do more damage than good in terms of trying to trigger the word triggering an image, because word for us is like a an accepted meaning that we carry around, and then we pass it around from one person to the person to have a way to communicate, to get to on the same page as one another, so that
Right.
we can work together and hunt together and benefit together. And so having impeccable word, like impeccable with your word, is very essential. And I think, mirroring is something that I have heard many times that people have used it for their own benefit, and that may create miscommunications and misinformation. And I've been reading this book alongside doing this podcast, and most of the examples and evidence that the author is giving in terms of the reason why we are, have the evil negative side to us. We were talking about the young lady got stabbed by a bunch of people, and 38 people looking
Right.
out windows and didn't do anything, and just say, hey, you guys are evil, you don't help people. And that's the thing, is all this comes from misinformation. Same thing with the story with New Orleans and Hurricane Katrina.
Right.
People embellishing some outrageous story that is, it's doesn't have any substance to it. So a lot of information that we have in the negative and dark cloud cover that we have today is all made up.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
all like it's something with the experiments, like the basement in Stanford.
Right. That was so messed up.
I mean, the thing is, people, you have an agenda, and you forcing people to do certain thing, and you take an advantage, and you manipulate people's kindness nature for your own good, and you twist it, to make them evil. And that's a misinformation. And all these come from some sort of misinformation, because the people who are doing the experiment, right? They thought they were helping humanity by participating, by acting out a nature or a personality that they don't actually carry. It's not natural, because they are
Right.
playing a part. They're playing a prisoner, or they're playing a guard, right? They are playing it, and they're trying to get into the role. And even in the sense, when they try to get in a role, they couldn't even get in a role. They were forced to say, hey, this is for the good of science, for you to do
Right.
things that it is not comfortable, and they are told that this is for the so these people, they act different from their norm, because they were told
Yeah,
that
they're
they
manipulated. I mean,
will contribute to society,
right.
to something better. Hey, we want to create an image of how guards and prisons should not behave, so that we can reform the prison system. That's what they were told, but it wasn't the intention. So somebody manipulated and twist, their sense of humanity, and
Right.
because of that, that becomes this dark cloud that we carry with us. And because we pay more attention to the negative, any positive, even 1,000 positive, the negative will always overshadow the positives.
My grandmother used to have a saying that she would tell me all the time when I was a kid, because I got in trouble a lot as a kid. Like, and when I say I got in trouble, I mean, it wasn't like anything incredibly serious, but I did a lot of stupid shit. Like, I probably had the cops called on our house for innocent fun, but maybe a handful of times before I was even in high school. We were throwing water balloons at cars, or shining laser pointer pins in people's, windows at night, or like hitting tennis balls, acting like we were throwing a football across the driveways and hitting a car. I mean,
Hmm.
it was like we would just do stupid stuff, right? But it was always in good fun, at least in our opinion. Looking back on it now, it's pretty shitty. But I mean, we were little kids, and I mean, my friends were just doing stupid things, right? And my grandmother used to always have a saying that she would tell me, because I got great grades. I played all the sports, and I was an all-star in the sports, and I was a very good student and had good friends and stuff like that. But she was like, she would always tell me, like, Chris, 10 attaboys, gets erased by one off shit,
Hmm.
every single time. Like, it never fails. Like, that's what people remember, is the one off shit, and that's always stuck with me my entire life, is like, you can have 1,000 attaboys, and then you have one all shit, and you're like, well, that's it.
That
That's
stuck
like
that
you said,
stucks with you.
right. Right, exactly. And she's right. I mean, you're like, you gotta, that's for me, that's why I added integrity into my core values, right?
Mm.
I think I've told you before in the past, I used to love stealing groceries from the grocery store. It was fun for me. Like, I mean, just fun. It was good hearted. Like, I didn't need to. I had plenty of money. It was just like, so, it was those self scanners. This started when one of my closest friends, ironically, he was a recovering drug addict, and I pulled him away. I don't know if I've ever told you this story before, but he was struggling like really, really bad. I mean, this has been one of my closest friends since I was 5 years old, and I had just graduated from college. He got caught up with some wrong people later on in high school after his parents got divorced. As I was in college and getting ready to prepare for my life, he was spiraling downhill into a crippling crystal meth addiction. That was during that time when crystal meth was like, really on the rise in the country, and he got really caught up in it. That was the life that he was living. He was dealing drugs. His body was wasting away. He was in and out of these really seedy places all the time. Then he got into like a really bad car wreck one night. I was like 22 and I had just gotten my new first job out of school, and I was making
37,000 a year.
And I was like, look, man, I finally have my own apartment, I'm out of school. Like, I was like, that's it. I mean, he almost killed himself in this car accident because he'd been up for 48 hours straight because meth, you're on meth. He passed out at the wheel of his car, just fell asleep because he hadn't slept for days, and flipped his truck over multiple times and ended up in the hospital and was like, should have died. I mean, he probably should have died, and he didn't. He survived. And that was the wake up call for me that I got to step in. Like, I tried to do stuff earlier on and it wasn't good enough. His family had given up on him. And this is one of my best friends, and I was like, that's it. I brought him to South Bend with me, and he lived on my couch for 6 months. Actually, he ended up staying there for like years. But I was like, here's the only requirement. You don't need to get a job. I had an extra car my parents gave me. So I had 2 cars at the time. So I was like, look, I have an extra car up there for you. Like, you can sleep on my couch. Like, you don't have to work. Like, you have to do anything. The only job is to be clean and sober and just sleep on my couch, and I'll even buy you food. How this all leads back to integrity, right? So I was young and didn't have a ton of money. They had this Meijer, which is like this big superstore here in Indiana and the Midwest in general. It's kind of like a super Target or something like that kind of scenario. Anyway, that was early on when they started these self-checkout lines, and they were like the full conveyor belt where you would go scan your stuff and you put it down to a conveyor belt, right? And then it would go down to collect, and then you would bag up your stuff and you would leave, right? So what we ended up doing, because I was basically paying for 2 people to eat all the time because he had no money, and his body was ravished. I mean, this guy used to be, he's like 6'3", 6'2", and he, and at his healthiest weight is probably like 190. I swear to you, he probably weighed like 130 pounds or something like that. I mean, he was like wasting away. It was awful. As he was recovering, he was just ravaging food all over the place because he deprived his body for so long with meth. He was eating like crazy. So we would go through the scanner and I would say, hey, you just go down to the end of the line and I'm going to go and fake scan it across the thing. And then I'm just going to, because the weight of the conveyor belt was how they weighed if something was on it or not. So I would fool the camera and I would just scan it. And then I would chuck it down the thing before it hit the conveyor belt, and he would bag it up really fast, right? So we would go buy groceries once a week for him and get him all this stuff, and we would probably spend $100, but we probably bought like $300 worth of groceries or something like that. So we did this for like a year. Every single time we went to the store, I was supporting him, and it was kind of fun. So we just having a good time. And I know it was like, this isn't hurting anybody. Look, I justified it rationally. These assholes got rid of these people's jobs, and they don't have anybody monitoring it. They're saving money. Like, it's okay. Like, it's not a big deal.
This is where the misinformation comes from. For some reason, they have a bad image in your mind, and that's why you do it, right? This is the traumatic debt that we talked about yesterday, because if you go back to the beginning, when you have no dark cloud cover over your head, right? You wouldn't do that. Everybody has the sense of conscience. Hey, it's hurting somebody, right? Because you say, hey, it doesn't hurt anybody that is innocent. You say these guys are bunch of assholes or whatever.
A recovering drug addict that I was paying for.
From your perspective, they don't deserve the money from you, and from their perspective is you guys are just a bunch of delinquents. So that's where I'm saying is all of these misunderstanding and miscommunication, it creates all the dark cloud evil that we now see today, and the debt is keep piling up because right now everybody is putting up a wall just because that's the misunderstanding. Because if you had known, like, hey, let's say back in the day where the grocery store was owned by some old lady, right? Then she got right. You wouldn't do it.
And I saw. I would. No,
wouldn't
I
do
would
that
never
to
do
her.
That. No,
you know what I mean?
Never.
But because you see her as an innocent person from your perspective, so you make judgment. But judgments are basically on the information. For whatever reason, maybe you watch some kind of news and somebody twisted some kind of words and these guys are assholes, and so you start doing it and you justifying yourself to say, I am doing the world a favor. I'm doing something good. And every single one of us has that intention. We go to war because I'm doing something good. I kill somebody because I'm doing something good.
Right.
I'm saving somebody. I'm saving my family. I'm saving whatever, right? Same thing with like all of the gangs members and oppression.
Oh
The
yeah.
gang members say, "Hey, my dad or whatever is an asshole and it's a reject and he's a wife beater or whatever." So he joins a gang and say, "Hey, these guys gonna turn out to be like my dad, so I'm gonna shoot him." So that's the thing. All this misinformation is coming, and that bag of traumatic debt, right, is piled up more and more and more. So even in today's society, where we have the best standard of livings ever in the world, right? In any moment in history, but yet we have the worst depressions rate ever. From so it comes from this heavy burden and this heavy mental weight that you carry around. And so for me, this is the cause, right? All of the evidence I saw in the book where he's talking about people are telling him these are the events that unfold that portray humans in a negative light. He said, well, let's re-examine it and see what would actually happen based on the research and based on more investigations on the actual event itself, from the Law of the Flies book, right?
Right. Yeah.
And to
Which I'm gonna
the
read that. I've
basement.
actually never. I can't wait. Actually, I'm gonna read that one.
That book is actually required reading in high school.
It is.
I mean, you are passing around bad information.
You are. Yeah. No, you're totally right. If you pretend
You
that
are
is
required.
like,
You are. The thing is, the
yeah, actually,
teachers
you make a
in
really good point. Romeo and Juliet, Julius Caesar, like Julius Caesar gets stabbed in the back by some guy, but
we are required to learn
that's what
these
we're
things.
required
So,
to
like,
read.
to
Right.
me,
And
the teachers
Beowulf,
and
yeah.
educators and all these, the Department of Education, they are saying we are doing our kids a favor by telling them, hey, to learn about these things. They're telling us to learn a bunch of lies, right? It's traumatic debt because what I mean, what happened? I mean, do you know why even the two family fight in the first place? The Montague and the Capulet? We don't
No
know. We
idea.
just know
Yeah.
they hate each other.
Right.
We don't know
Right.
why. Right? It's just some kind of misunderstanding a long, long time ago, and it just pile up more and more. And now they just say, "Oh, I hate you." Why? Because you are Montague, and because
Right.
you're Capulet, right? Nothing else. No other reasonable reason that you can
Right.
say other than because you're Montague and you're a
You know,
Capulet. We
you know,
don't
Bill,
share the same sky. We need to annihilate the other one because you were told not to. Like even the
right.
parents, right? Even the parent, they don't even know why they're fighting because their father was fighting and their grandfather was fighting and their
Right.
great grandfather was fighting, and they just just like the story I told you about the daughter, the mother, and the grandmother with the turkey, where talking about when
Oh yeah.
the
Why
daughter
do they
and
cut
the
it off?
mother was preparing the
Yeah.
turkey, and the mother chopped off the end of the turkey before she put it in the oven. It's just
Right.
like, why did you do it, right? Well, I don't know. You know, my mother,
Yeah.
the grandmother, she always did it, so I do it too. So, you know, long story short, the granddaughter went to ask her grandmother when at a later date, say, hey, why did you chop down the end of the turkey before you put it in turkey? Because in her days the oven was too small, so they had to
Right.
cut it, had to trim the end so it would fit, right? But then the reason that we do it today, it's not really
It
the
makes no
reason.
sense.
It makes no sense
Yeah.
for us. And so
Right.
lots and lots of misinformation, and that is what causes the evil in the world. And for me, is people are just trying to protect themselves, and this is why they do the other things first, because those guys are assholes. So I'm trying to help my friends out. It's just the perspective, right? From their perspective, you guys are delinquents, and from your perspective, those guys are big cats asshole that is just
Well, actually, from my perspective, it was totally different. I was 22 years old, and I was supporting another 23-year-old, who was in a bad shape. Like, I mean, literally, like I can't. I don't. Have you ever known anybody that's like been addicted, like have an addiction? Has that ever been a part of your life? Like of
no,
knowing.
no.
I mean, it's a disaster. I mean, actually, the book that I'm reading right now is called The Fifth Vital. It's a book of this opioid addict that recounts his addiction and all the crap that he did and how hard. I mean, it is devastating to all the lives around these people, to the person itself, destroys lives. I mean, and it is terrible to watch. So I'm watching my best friend slowly die, right? Like, I mean, I had to do something. What we were doing was wrong, at the grocery store. But like, the moral of the story of that one was he's doing great now. He's thriving. That time period of his life changed his life, right? We got him back on a path where he could get a job, hold down a job, do stuff,
Well,
like
it's
meet
because you
people,
stole the groceries. Because I mean, he has a friend that cares for him. That's why he recovered, not because you stole, right?
Well, he recovered because he wanted to recover. I just helped him. I didn't do
Destroy,
anything.
no,
Well,
no,
it,
no
it
merits
does.
in these discussions, and I don't
It,
think it's any excuse to say, hey, I had to, because my friend is struggling, I had to steal, right? To me, it's no excuse.
I agree,
That is
and
not that, and I wouldn't
this is
encourage that.
I agree. This is the moral of the story was that's why I added in integrity into my core values, because like if you actually look at it, I mean, I've done this exercise before with certain things. I've told you about this. Like whenever you have that pit in your stomach where you're like, something doesn't feel right, right? It doesn't feel right to steal from somebody else, right? Like I don't care even if it's for a great cause. It's just something doesn't feel right. And I would go look in my, like these days, back then I didn't have a core values list, to go value. That's not how I live my life. But these days I would go back and I would, in that same exact scenario, I would go, does it violate, challenge, balance, play,
But
like,
the thing is, for me,
what,
you don't really
like, it
need to go
doesn't,
back
but
because it just comes out you it's gnarly.
right. So, but this is what I'm saying. This is why I added in integrity, because I was like, look, at the end of the day, I know that that's not right. Whether or not it violates my core values or my mission or my purpose or not, as stated today, it's irrelevant. Like I know that that's not right. So therefore, I will never do that ever again. As a matter of fact, I've had multiple opportunities where my old triggering self would come up and I'm like, oh, I forgot to pay for that. When you're doing self checkouts all the time, you're like, oh, I left that one can of kombucha or whatever in there on accident. Then I go, I'll go pay for it. You know what I mean? Like a part of me is like, well, I'll just walk out of the store. And then I'm like, nope, integrity, Chris. Remember, that's not what you're supposed to do. And I go back and I pay for the
Well,
kombucha,
it
right?
depends on how strongly your core values are. If I ask you, Chris, right now, I'm dying and I have a terminal disease. I need you to shoot me right now. I bet you, and you need to be close to me so that you don't accidentally miss
I
and
wouldn't do
hurt.
it. Yeah.
You couldn't. No, you couldn't. Not that you wouldn't. Even if you want to, you couldn't.
Well, so
The thing is, right now you can think about it, but when I'm like right, like 2 feet away from you, you could not. Even if you hate me, you could not.
I mean,
Because
you're probably right. I mean, I'm trying to think about this one because like
the
that's
thing
not
is,
a
you actually
this
trying to
yeah.
do me a favor, saving me from my misery, but you couldn't. You could not do it.
Well, I've had a little bit of experience with this, not the shooting of somebody in the head, but like having to make a call to take somebody's life, and take them off life support. So like I do know what that feels like, and it is the hardest thing you'll ever do in your life. But if I had to shoot that person, like it's different than saying, look,
Well, you have to end
let
someone's
them
life
expire,
versus let it expire, right?
Yeah,
That's
that
a huge
yes, right.
difference. Because
It is a big difference.
my
Yeah.
life doesn't expire just because you do nothing. You let it expire. That's different than actually taking it.
If
That's
you
what I'm
said
saying is
go,
there are certain
yeah.
elements in our system that is been conditioned for a million years. And this is who we are. Deep down, regardless of
Right.
what people say, deep down who we are is we are a very kind person. We are kind to our kid. We are kind to our friend because we know they don't hurt us. The reason why we're not kind to other people is because we have been told that other people will hurt us.
Yeah.
Right? You see what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
for me,
Yeah.
this is why I love this book, is because it actually go against the grain of society, because society has been conditioned to say, you got to watch out. People are out there to get you, but no one is. Are you out there to get anyone?
It's
I'm
the
not.
it's
You're
it's
not.
the
And the people I talk to, they're not. They just mind their own business. So why is that people saying people are out there to get you? You got to be careful. You gotta lock your doors. You gotta, like,
right.
yes, you have to do that because there are
It's the one all shit.
miscommunication where it could this imbalance. Just like, for example, I told you, about the gangster, right? The gangs are bad, but the kid before they joined the gang were they bad? Are the kid in a gang bad? No, they do it because they thought they did something good,
Right. Yeah. No, I
right?
mean, I agree.
Criminals say I'm doing something good. Even Thanos in the Avengers, he's trying to save the universe.
The book, The Fifth Vital, he goes into some pretty graphic shit about as a drug dealer and as a drug addicted, heroin addict and opioid addict and all this other stuff, like some of the stuff that he did. And he always justified it in his own mind a lot of times of like, well, if I don't do this, like,
they can do
like
get
he,
something else and get worse or whatever. I
right,
mean, it's
right,
always the justifications, right? So
right,
the missing the missing piece of the puzzle, whatever information you get, and this is especially true. And this is what I'm gonna say it again. News is like news to your brain is like sugar to your body. It is very, very destructive. It is not good for you. I
well,
mean, for
you need some
anyone.
sugar.
No.
Yeah, you don't need any sugar in your body.
Nope. Not
You don't
anymore.
need sugar at all.
Not anymore.
There's no sugar in meat.
No.
What?
Like I eat no carbs.
There's no car.
They probably tiny, but essentially you're talking about having like dynamite in your system. It is explosive. Sugars are explosive. I mean,
Yes. Yeah.
it is so violently, like, it gives you a lot of energy. Just like I
Right.
told you, you put jet fuel in your car, right?
Right.
And you run it. Well, your engine's not gonna last long. It's gonna break down because it doesn't it can contain the pressure of the jet fuel, right?
Right.
Sugar is like that, right? It's so volatile, but your body is going to get damaged just because you using sugar. And your mind with the negatives, because all you've been feeding in the news is negative, and the
Right.
only thing that sells is negative stuff. 1 to 999 things, right? It says
Right.
there are 999 good things you don't pay attention to because that's safe. The one thing that you pay attention to is that one negative thing. So you walk, you see a 999 different, whatever, like rocks, and then there's one rock that looks like snake. You're gonna pay attention to just because that's survival skills, and you have been conditioned for that. So our mind is going to be alert to these negatives, and if you are looking at the news, you're looking at all these things, is the only thing they feed you is like, then somebody get killed, right? There's a million other one have happy life. Oh yeah, this one have happy life. Oh, in the middle of nowhere, there's no war. Oh, in here, everything is good and dandy. It's a regular normal life. A Tuesday Memorial, right?
Right.
So
The
no one is put on the news this kind of peaceful goodness. Hey, fishermen went fishing. Nothing happens. No one has ever put on the news on a TV on a show about some guy going fishing and it's a normal day. Nothing happened. The only thing is, hey, somebody broke their neck. Somebody, do something stupid and get some kind of a shovel hit in the head, and half of the brain is bleeding out. Somebody, drove his car into the ditch, whatever. It's all this negative news. And when you watch the news, that's all you get. And the more you watch, the more cynical you become.
I totally agree. Do you know who John Krasinski is? The guy that used to be on The Office.
Yeah.
He's married to Emily Blunt. I don't know if you remember back during COVID when it first started, but it was like so negative. Every day it was like 5,000 people died, 10,000. Every day they'd get on and they'd read the numbers or whatever. And it was like people were in lockdown. And so John Krasinski started this joke, Good News Network, where he would get on and he would read the good news, positive stories every single day. And I totally forgot about it until you just mentioned it, because I don't know whatever happened to it, but it looks like I don't know what happened to this.
Nobody watches anymore.
Yeah, nobody watches it anymore. Like, I mean, it's so sad, because you're right. Like, it goes back to what I was talking about of, like, saying congratulations or saying good job to your elephant, right? Like, you can hit 99 great shots in a row on a tennis court, and it's the one bad one that you focus on. But like, these days I'm trying really hard to tell my elephant, like, great job, let's celebrate this a little bit. My dad's friends, I go golfing with them, pretty regularly. I don't golf a lot, but whenever I do, it's always with my dad and his friends. And, they love golfing, and that's a big thing that they've always done. They make fun of him so much because Dale Sears is, just the character all of his own. I mean, you read it in the book as I described him, but he's just a character. So whenever he hits a great drive, literally, this is what happens every single time. He hits a great drive and he goes, whoa! I'm not joking. Like, everybody makes fun of him for it all the time, because he's always like, look at that shot. He just yells it out.
But
like,
I bet he has a happy life.
He does. I mean, he does. So, but no, it made me start to think about this the other day when we were talking about this, because I'm like, kudos, Dad. Like we all make fun of him for going. They're always like, we always just make fun of him. It's like, dude, what are you doing? You can't just cheer for yourself all the time.
Why
Like that
not?
is, that is,
Who said who said you
because it's so
can't? Right? Society
because
said, and you
so
learned that
uncommon.
from somebody. You learned that it is not okay to cheer for yourself.
I know it is. I mean, now that we're talking about these things, like I'm starting to go, man,
Like
maybe he
you
knows
are
something that I
silly,
don't.
so not to
I should
cheer for yourself, right? Who would cheer? I mean, think about it. It is logical for somebody to cheer for themselves, and it has been frowned upon by society.
It's very much so. Everybody makes fun of him for it. You can just almost see everybody go every time that he does it. It's like you're like, oh my god, I'm so embarrassed. But now they all just make fun of him, and I make fun of him all the time for it because it's like just good humor and fun now. Because
Right.
it's like now I hit a good drive, and I'm like, whoa, look at my drive. We all just make fun of him, but now that I'm thinking more and more about it, I mean, maybe I should be mirroring my dad. Like when I'm out on the tennis court and I hit a great shot, I should be like, did you all just see that shot? That was insane.
I need to watch it again, right? So then that's the thing is, these are the things that to me make sense as a human being, but it is against the grain of society. I mean, think about it. If you don't, and everybody say, hey, oh, you should love yourself, but then when you have this kind of expression, then you say you get slapped on the wrist, say no, no, no. So you contradicting people. Like everybody saying, you should love yourself first before you can love anyone else, and all this BS, all blah blah, right? For me, it's like, look, deep down, you need to have to cheer for yourself. You should be your biggest fan. To me, if you are your biggest fan, the depression would never even gonna have a grip on you ever.
I do agree. I don't want to ever say never because we don't know.
But you talk about, but back what I'm saying is, only you can be you. No one can be better than you of being you, right? And so being you, it is the only thing you can do. That's the only thing that no one can take away from you. And like I say, if you can be your biggest fan, right? I'm talking about fan, being a genuine fan. You're depressed because why are you depressed? You're depressed because no one appreciates
you. Feel like you're
you.
letting you down. Yeah, you feel like you're letting yourself
But
down.
if you appreciate yourself, then that's all it needs. If you appreciate yourself, other people will appreciate you as well. So for me, is I truly believe that if you are your truly biggest fan, you know what a fan is, right? You accept that person for who they are.
Yeah.
Because you're judgmental against yourself. That's why you become depressed. I don't care who you are. You could be, hey, I'm handicapped. I have, I can't walk. Whatever. If you even if you have those kind of disabilities, you can still be happy because you have somebody who are your fan. When your fan, they are loyal to you because you are who you are, right? Our biggest strength, but it's also a weakness, is the ability to connect, to transport ourselves in another person's shoes. But when we can't do that, we become isolated. And when we become isolated, we become depressed and we become an outcast. No one wants. Kids are struggling in high school because of all of these things, the expectations, right? Yeah, you look at the news and you expect to do this, you expect to do that, blah blah blah, and all these BS that been fed by the media. Everything is the
unrealistic
media is
expectations.
only giving you something that your brain will focus on.
Right.
So whatever that the media is feeding you, right? This is the thing that you don't want, right? 1 out of 1,000 things that they're feeding you, and the kids nowadays are being fed so much of this information, so much of these news that it is impossible not to feel bad for yourself. And to me, it's a tough world for the kids because the information has just.
How is it? I thought.
I mean, cyberbullies happen like so much now. It's so pervasive now. It's like when people are like depressed because somebody did this and somebody did that. It's like
he talks about that in the book. Actually, majority of soldiers like never fire a weapon ever, and that's a proven statistic because they don't want to. But cyberbullying is similar to warfare. When it used to be hand-to-hand combat, people didn't fire guns in those days. A lot of times, they found excuses not to because it's hard to do it up front. It's hard to bully somebody to their face and watch them cry and feel sorry and whatever. But it's really easy to drop a bomb on somebody through a drone. When you're sitting in a air conditioned building in DC and you're dropping a bomb somewhere in Pakistan or something like that, or it's really easy to destroy people's feelings when you're behind you're sitting on your chair in your parents' basement or whatever.
It's a double whammy. It's just because you have the distance of your emotion. You distance your emotion because you have a button to press and the other side of the world get a nuke, right?
Right.
That's that's one. And the other one is you have this dark cloud cover that everybody's telling you you're doing the right thing. You are doing the right thing by hurting somebody because
Right.
that person deserves it. That shithead deserves it, right?
Right.
That is
Yeah.
the language. This is the kind of imagery that you're being
You're right. Yeah.
bombarded with. Like, doesn't matter where you go, right? You are in this. You open up TV, all bunch of BS news. You put out Facebook, all bunch of curated BS news. Twitter,
Right.
wherever you want. You go anywhere. You go to Facebook, Google, internet. You go to Netflix. Like even Netflix has those shit on there. Like all these shows. Like hey, these shows make it, and so it doesn't make it, right?
Right. Right.
Well, they create it for you because they say, hey, these are newsworthy. These are people who are watching it. It's like everything you see on TV is some kind of drama,
I got to get your
some
attention. I mean, bad
a
shit. Doctors
pain
or
or
cops or
misery,
lawyers
right?
or right. Yeah.
It's all this shit. I mean,
Right.
you can't escape it. There's nowhere you can go where you show you actually the good news. Hey, bunch of people living there,
Right.
a bunch of people living everywhere, and bunch of people helping each other out, right? But no, you see all people shooting, blah blah blah, blah, right? So to me, that's where this is the double whammy, just because it's so impossible to escape from the society. Just like you get on the back of a tiger, you can't get off because when you get off, it can bite you. You have to continue to be on the back of the tiger,
Right.
and so you
That is
can't get away from it. And then you have the other piece where right, it's easier to do the negative actions than before. And so, like I say, it's these.
agreed. And I think when you peel back the layers and you get back to what we do best, like it'll be more reflective of what this guy's theory is. Real fast, because I know we're out of time. What's the answer to your question? To the question?
So actually, I don't have one.
Well,
I don't
why
have one.
not?
I just don't. Like
You
I
can say
say,
it yourself.
I could say that, yeah. It would be myself because that's what I do is I'm always standing up for people, right? That means that I do things because I feel like I do it. I don't have a need to feel like I'm impressing anyone or I want to be anyone because like I say before, one of my thing is when I was younger, I always rebel against like I'm always the underdog. I always fight for the underdog. For whatever reason, that's my nature. I do
Yeah.
that. I live for myself. I don't want to be Steve Jobs because it's great to have money, but I don't want his responsibility. It's great to be Elon Musk, but I don't want to be responsible for this and that and the other. So no one has ever fulfilled a role that I want to become. Not
Right.
everything, right? Because when I look at people, it's if you want to become that person, you have to take in the good and the bad as well. You can't just take the good and leave the bad, right? For example, Tiger Wood, right? I like to be Tiger Wood at some instances, but not all the time. So for me, it's I'd rather be myself and do what I think feels good, and I will experiment and try different things. So there's certain things that I do that it's strongly like for me, for whatever reason, maybe because my name is true, and I keep saying to myself that it's true, and that word essentially makes me who I am. So for me, I don't do anything that is like not integrity because if I do that, it's so much work, so hard for me to like trying to make myself feel okay, right?
Right.
It is traumatic to me to do things, even to steal like a 50 cent lemons from the grocery store. I couldn't do it. Not that even if I want to, even if you dare me, I still couldn't do it. So for me, it's I have a like I say, most of the time I would consider myself a black sheep of the family, just
Yeah.
because I'm not normal. I'm not like everybody else, but
Well, you should like
at the
not
same
be
time,
right. Yeah, I mean, I love your answer because I know you're now a fan of Matthew McConaughey. I don't know if after reading his Green Lights book, and
I do like him, but I wouldn't say he would be my hero just because, like I
no,
say,
no, no, that's not
oh,
what I was saying. No, no,
right,
no, I'm saying I know you're a fan of Matthew McConaughey now after reading the Green Lights. Not that
uh-huh.
he's your hero, but I was going to say, have you ever seen his Oscar speech when he won for Dallas Buyers Club? Any chance
No,
you've seen that
no,
before? Okay, so I'm going to send you this link. Number one, after we're done here, basically his speech was there are three things that I need to do each day. I need someone to look up to, another to look forward to, and then the other is someone to chase, right? And then when he said who I chase, so he did his, someone to look forward to, someone to look up to, all that other stuff. And he said, who do I chase? When I was 15 years old, I had a very important person in my life ask me, who's your hero? And he said,
mm,
I thought about it. And he said, it's me in 10 years. And he goes, so when I turned 25, the same person comes to me and says, "Are you your hero?" And he said, "Not even close, because my hero is me at 35." See, every day, every week, every month, and every year of my life, my hero is always 10 years away. It's always me 10 years away. I'm never going to be my hero, but anyway, it reminded me of what you were saying, who you want to be in the future, kind of 10 years into the future kind of thing. That was the first time that I ever had heard Matthew McConaughey speak, not in a movie. I was like, whoa, I was kind of blown away when this was his speech. I was like, man, that was really damn deep. Fast forward 10 years later or whatever it was, and he does Green Lights. And I was like, I mean, I think you and I both were entertained as hell, but at the same time, like, learned a lot, right? I mean, it was an informational book, and he has a good philosophy and outlook on life. And, he's a black sheep as well, right? He does things his own way, and, lives his own life, and, he's his own hero, somebody to chase, right? So it just reminded me of, what you were kind of saying about yourself. And that's totally fine. I like that.
And like I said, you have to be your biggest fan.
Right.
That's the only way you be happy, regardless who you are. You can be like a nobody and be happy. You billionaire and be happy. So for me, that's my thinking. I mean, maybe I'm not normal, but it's okay.
Well, that's what makes you a good person. So that's why I'm talking. If you were normal, I wouldn't talk to you, because I don't feel I'm a normal person either. I mean, we're both kind of weirdos, and that's good. Weirdos can combine.
I like being a weirdo.
Yeah. Agreed. Well, that's a good one to wrap up on for tonight. So we have one more left of Humankind.
Yeah,
and
we'll do that on
we'll
Monday.
tackle that one on Monday. Yeah.
Yeah.
But great discussion as always. And the question we can leave with you all is
Yes.
who's your hero, and how do you try to emulate them in your life, or mirror them, or however you want to call it. So let us know, and thanks for joining, and we'll see you all.
We'll come back for 5 of 5.
Can't wait.
All right, see ya.